Over the past 50 years, Climatech has grown and kept pace with the ever-changing HVAC industry, providing our customers with the best knowledge on the most innovative systems and services.
Serving Lorain and western Cuyahoga counties, Climatech is a full-service heating, air conditioning, and ventilation company. A third-generation, family-owned and operated company providing the most up-to-date level of service and installation with the best quality products.
Today, your comfort demands customized solutions, utilizing best industry practice combined with high-quality, reliable products that protect you and your home.
The HVAC industry will never stand still. It's a commitment to the environment that we learn, train, and produce next-level efficient products and services.
Partnering with Green Sky Financing and our dedicated customer care software allows us to give you the comfort that you need in your home.
Smart products, smart technicians, and dedication to details drive us to deliver highly effective products into your home today and into the future.
It is week 3 of the Climatech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee here. We got a lot to talk about this week. 2 Monday Night Football games, so we have 6 games that we're going to discuss. And, of course, there's a lot to talk about with the Cleveland Browns. But, Vince, welcome in. Good to be back with you for another week, despite the records not looking too great to start the year for us.
1, 2, and 18. Those are the 3 weeks that you want to forget about, as we said last week. So got through them. Week 3 settling down here a little bit. I think our picks should be a little bit better. I'm happy with my record thus far. I wanted to go 8-8 week 1 and week 2, break even. Did a little bit better than that. excited. But, this is a week coming up where I honestly feel, and this is an article I write every year. I write the 0-2s that are real, the 0-2s that are fake. It's something I love to do. Because starting in week 3, nine times out of 10, you start to see those 2-0s become 2-1s, and the 0-2s become 1-2s. And what I mean by that is there's some good teams. I think there are some good teams that are still 0-2, and there are some frauds at 2-0. So this is actually my favorite week of the season coming up. One of my few favorite weeks is week 3. Happy to be here with you again, Cole. Let's get it on.
Well, it's a week where things turn around. I'm, of course, hoping that happens. You have the lead on me once again here, and I'm under 500, and that's not something that we typically are at when it comes to that. We're well over 500 every year when we do our predictions. I know that will pick up, that will turn as the season goes on, but right now it's always tough starting off. You're just a touch over 500, and have me here by a few games because last week, despite us being tied into week 1, any game that I picked different from you, it ended up panning out in your favor. So we're going to jump into this on Thursday Night Football, and this is one that I think we're both going to be on the same page for. The 49ers and the Giants, they're playing. Apparently Saquon Barkley, everybody expecting him to be out for a couple weeks with a high ankle sprain. Instead, Brian Daboll saying that he's going to be a game-time decision, which I'd be shocked on a short week that they're going to wait all the way up until game time to determine that he's not going to play. I don't think there's any way that he can play. And if they do send him out there, you just risk the chance of him having a greater injury later in the year because he probably isn't going to be able to turn and cut. They'd have to really tape up that ankle. And it's almost going to be straightforward, right? North and south and not much cutting. And I think that takes away some of what Barkley can do. So I would expect to see Matt Breida. And I think that's all I need to say about how I feel about that. Breida, he's an okay running back, but I really don't trust the Giants to do much of anything. They haven't impressed me to start the year. I thought they'd have a drop-off this year. But the 49ers, they look good. They're going to be solid once again. They're off to a good start. And I see no reason why the 49ers shouldn't win this one on Thursday night. So keep it short and sweet, San Francisco.
49ers good, Giants not so much. I don't think the 49ers are overachieving either. I think this is who they are. I think it's a telling sign that Brock Purdy could come back from injury. This is a guy not drafted high, Mr. Irrelevant actually, and leading this team the way he does. He's a natural fit in that offense. 49ers all the way in this one. I want to toss this out here as well. It's amazing to me that the Giants came back to beat the Arizona Cardinals. When you really look at things, they had not scored, I want to say, I could be wrong, but I think in the first 6 quarters of the season, or perhaps it was the second quarter, late second quarter of that game that they finally scored. I love Saquon Barkley, but just cannot seem to stay healthy on a consistent basis. Easy pick. I'm with you, Cole. Niners.
Yeah, and some people just have bad luck. Like Saquon Barkley's a guy who I think he's a physical freak. He's a talented running back, but somehow just when the chips fall, they don't seem to pan out in his favor. Like it feels like so many other running backs could in a pile get bent backwards, and it just so happens to be it's Barkley, in just an awkward situation. So some guys just have some unfortunate luck, and I think sometimes the better the running back you are, sometimes again the hits that you're going to take, and of course we'll touch on a guy here a little bit later, and I think everybody knows where I'm going with that. So not much more to say about Thursday night football because we're on the same page, both taking the 49ers. We'll move to Sunday night, a team and the Pittsburgh Steelers who just won a close one last night against the Cleveland Browns. Again, for anybody looking into the show and you want to know the behind the scenes, of course, Vince and I record this a day or two ahead of time. We got a busy week of covering football for sure. So that Browns-Steelers game is very fresh for us. But now the Steelers, they go up against the Raiders on Sunday Night Football. So a little bit of a shorter week for them, but still plenty of time to prep for their game. How do you feel about the Steelers and the Raiders, Vince?
They suck. I mean, their offense is terrible. 2 fluke plays last night that could have happened to any quarterback in the league. That could have happened to Patrick Mahomes. Right now, everyone wants to just explode on Watson, and I get that to an extent, but Pittsburgh's defense is really good. No one's going to deny that. It's loaded, right? But they cannot move the ball on offense. I don't see them doing that this week. I think this was another easy pick for us. Want to double check? Yep. I got Vegas in this one as well. Now, for me, though, I want to see just how good of a team they truly are. They've looked up and down in both their games so far this season. And I think, I was trying to pull up a stat and my computer picked absolute wrong time to run an update here. So anyways, but I think this is going to be a telltale sign for the Raiders. I do not see Pittsburgh doing anything really at all this season unless they get some sort of major improvement from everybody on their offense. I don't think injuries have anything to do with it either. I don't feel this is a good Pittsburgh team, which, as you said, makes today sting even more than it probably should.
Well, it's not a good Steelers team. This isn't a good Raiders team, right? I'm going to touch on this game here in a moment. The big thing is, and we'll touch on the Browns a little bit later, but sure, Watson had mistakes and he didn't play great. There were things he missed, but part of that is you could tell the internal clock was speeding up. He didn't trust that the pressure wasn't coming at him. He didn't have a ton of time. And when he did have time, he expected that it was coming, right? You know how Joe Burrow was seeing ghosts in week 1? I think Watson was seeing ghosts a little bit here as the game went on in week 2, right? DeJuan Jones played very well.
Yes.
Wyatt Teller is a good run blocker, one of the best run blockers in the league. But he's an average pass blocker, right? Average in pass pro. And I thought he made Larry Ogunjobi look good. Ethan Posick, he had some issues in that game. Joel Bitonio wasn't flawless. I thought those interior 3 guys in Bitonio, Posick, and Teller, who are very solid run guys who open up holes. I mean, that's part of why Chubb is so good. He's a great running back, but at the same time, those 3 in the middle really open up a ton of holes. That's why Ford's going to see some success as well, right? But they were not flawless when it came to their pass pro. And then we didn't even have to touch on the guy on the left side. Jed Wills has stunk for years, and we've stuck with Jed Wills. He's awful. I mean, let's put a traffic cone out there at left tackle, and it might block a little bit better against Highsmith because J.K. Watt. Yeah.
This was a guy, sorry to cut you off, but Jed Wills is a guy who has declined dramatically. You look at me, you, and Brandon Sorderpenter, that initial draft show we had a couple of years ago. That was the first one we ever had together. That's when the Browns drafted him. We were all very high on him. We all thought he was the top offensive lineman on the board that night. We were all about him. And his rookie season seemed like he had a lot to grow on, and he's regressed.
Well, I liked him when he was at right tackle at Alabama. I understand that he was like the blindside guy at Alabama as the right tackle. So then you think blindside guy at left tackle in the NFL, but I don't think it was as transparent as that. I think he was a much better right tackle at Alabama than left tackle in the NFL. He's never translated to that. But TJ Watt was actually quiet because DeJuan Jones played really well. There were times when Njoku was over there, again, he'd chip him, right? Or if David Bell was lined up in the slot over there, you'd see that he'd chip Watt. Those guys were helping Jones as well. Highsmith was tearing Wills a new one, especially on that play where Watson fumbled and it was a scoop and score. And any quarterback that I know of in the league is going to fumble that one. As soon as it was snapped, he literally had like one drop and he hardly got even into his set. Highsmith was already around the edge, blew by Wills, and Wills, he didn't have any kick out or anything. He just kind of turned and got spun around. It was ridiculous. And so Watson got hit immediately. It was stripped. And that's the touchdown that ultimately won them the game. So their defense has good things, right? The Steelers have good pieces on defense, but the offense, I am not impressed with at all. Najee has had the same problems for the last couple of years. He's big. He's got good size. He's strong. There's all the athletic tools, but he's just mentally slow processing things, right? He's such an East and West guy when physically he should be like Derrick Henry, North and South, right? It makes no sense. Jaylen Warren is a significantly better running back than him. The little bowling ball actually hits holes with power, and he's tough to bring down. They have their injuries at wide receiver. Pickett doesn't look great. Their O-line's improving, but it's still not excellent at all by any means. So I don't think the Steelers' offense is where it needs to be. Obviously, I want to touch on one more thing when it comes to Steelers, and there's a lot I could unload on. Cleveland Browns hate when they go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay? To be honest, I hate the Steelers for this reason. Right. And a lot of the Steelers fans, they say, oh, we won so much. We're winners. Great. That's good. You do have a franchise that knows how to win. And I have to credit your team. Part of that is because your team's always known how to play hard in every single game. Even if they're the less talented team, they play hard in every single game. They give it their all, especially on defense. Part of that, though, they are about the dirtiest franchise that I can ever recall. Always there's something that happens, and it always feels like there are Browns players or other players on teams coming out of those games against the Steelers, especially when it's a division game and there's significant injuries, right? There's no reason why that hit, and I know people are like, you have to tackle Nick Chubb low. I get it, right? Tackling low from in front is not an untypical thing, but that wasn't from the front. Chubb's getting wrapped up at the goal line from up top. All you have to come in is deliver a blow and try to push him back. Instead, he comes in helmet first, shoulder from the side to buckle in that knee. Dirty hit for Minka Fitzpatrick, fakes the injury. He's been a dirty player his whole career. I can't stand him, and I will physically get heated here on this podcast, which I typically don't do, and say it's stupid. It's purely stupid, right? There deserves to be a fine. There deserves to be some sort of punishment. Faking the injury, it was pathetic, right? A bad play, a dirty hit, and we're not opposed to seeing dirty hits from Steelers players before. I recall the Colt McCoy one when he was rolling out to the left and James Harrison popped him. There's a bunch of others that I can think of, but it's a typically dirty team, and I always hate when the Browns go up against them because there's always the fear of significant injuries, and it just so happened to be that. Of course, I'll let you touch on that, and I'll talk more about the Steelers game. But again, it's a fitting time to actually discuss that.
I'll throw this out here because you got me heated up too. Just thinking about it, you don't tackle someone at the knees at the goal line. Period. You don't see that for a reason. You don't see it in high school. You don't see it in college. So on and so on. At the goal line, more than anything, you're going to either have a defensive lineman or a linebacker coming up. It's a rarity that you'd have a defensive back. Regardless, you have to go ahead and wrap a guy up at the goal line because if you tackle low, they could reach out or however they're going to do. I
Yep.
realize this was not a goal line play. I get that. But still, a lot of the same parameters when you're inside the 5-yard line like that exist. It was a bad play. It was a dirty play. Shouldn't have happened. I agree with you. I think he laid there, kind of making it seem like it was some sort of vicious collision that he had to take as well.
Yeah, no.
I'm telling you something, folks. I've been watching this nonsense now with the Steelers going back decades to when I was a little boy. I mentioned it last week. One of my fondest memories is seeing the Browns win 51-0 at Three Rivers. It is to the point now where they're going to get every single call. They're going to play this physical style, and depending on who they're playing against, they're going to get the calls. If they're playing against Cleveland, they're going to get every single call. If they're playing against the Patriots, probably not.
Yeah.
It fits the NFL's tone to have Pittsburgh dominate, especially at home. It's no accident last night, folks, that ABC television or in ESPN, or however you want to shape that one, which, by the way, is beyond stupid, but I'm not even going to get on that soapbox right now. I'm not paying for Red Zone. Why am I watching? I want to watch the doggone Browns game. It has to be a split screen like you're looking at right now. That's ridiculous. Anyways, I don't even know where I was going. Oh, yeah. So my whole point to it is that I'm just getting so mad as we get going on the subject.
Yeah.
My whole point is this. They're not a good team. They have to play dirty to win in situations like that. And the narrative from ESPN was so clear that's where I was going with this. The narrative with ESPN was so clear. They mentioned it 3 different times, how Pittsburgh had won 20 straight times on Monday Night Football, which is insane to think of. But they're like the ultimate Monday Night Football team. They mentioned over and over and over again how the Browns hadn't won since 2003. It fits their narrative. Getting back to this particular game, I'll say it again. Raiders might not be giant beaters, but right now in that division, they have a hell of a shot. They're tied with the Chiefs. Obviously we're 2 weeks in, but this is a game the Raiders have to win. I think they have enough talent to get it done. And that's why, again, I'm going to say they moved to 2-1. Just really going to get off the Steelers for a while until we get back to the Browns later. But yeah, everybody is frustrated today. Didn't sleep last night. Just very frustrated.
Yeah. Now that I finally unload everything I wanted to talk about with the Steelers and how it felt for a long time, but then it comes to fruition again last night in the absolute bloodbath that we watched. Now I can actually get back to this game and say that the Raiders, again, they got beat down by the Bills. And the Bills are a really solid team, and they had to bounce back. But I don't know if the Raiders, they have Max Crosby, but I don't really trust what they have on their defense in general. Jimmy G's an okay quarterback. Certainly they have Devontae Adams. I like Josh Jacobs. I don't really trust their offensive line. There's a lot for Las Vegas that I don't trust. For those reasons, if the Browns, who I think have a better O-line, struggled against the front of the Steelers, then the Raiders, they're going to struggle with it as well. I think Highsmith, I think TJ Watt, they have big games. Ogunjobi, he's probably going to look good again. I think the linebackers are going to find a way to at least try to then crash in, stop the run. And Deshaun's more mobile than Jimmy G. I think he may be a sitting duck in this one. I'm going to say Pittsburgh wins on Sunday Night Football. I have them winning that one 20-14. Still think it's going to be a close game, but their defense wins out regardless of how well their offense does. But I'm sure against the Raiders defense, the Steelers offense will look a little bit better. So I am going to give the Steelers the win in that one. But again, neither of these teams are very good this year. But I'm still infuriated with the Steelers, but I'm not surprised, right? Disappointed, but not surprised. But I will say, credit to their fans. I will say their fans in the stadium seemed to actually be pretty classy in the moment of the injury and stuff, and the standing ovation and things. It was a nice moment, I guess, in that sense, from them chanting Chubb, giving him a standing ovation and all that. But regardless, their team always plays dirty, and that's how they are. But dirty Pittsburgh get the win this week.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, let me just double check this. That game's in Pittsburgh, correct? No, it's in Vegas. Never mind. I was going to say, how in the world did one stadium get back-to-back primetime games? But regardless, yeah, I mean, it's a cross-country trip, too. I just feel confident that the Raiders can pull this off.
Okay. So on Monday Night Football, we have 2 games. We're going to start with the NFC one. That is the Eagles and the Buccaneers. And I'm going to say there's not much to talk about here. The Buccaneers are a 2-0 team that's not very good. They've had a good stretch of games, right, against the Vikings team that's downhill from last year, who had the fortunes of winning so many one-possession games. And things aren't really trending their direction here at the moment. And then they play against the Bears, who are having their own issues. I like pieces on that defense. I think Fields is probably getting too much unnecessary criticism. He's certainly missed some throws. He's made some bad reads. I think there's some issues there where he needs to speed up his processing. But I think part of it is Fields went from running for his life last year, making things happen with his legs, to the line got a little bit better this year, and he's trying to actually stay in the pocket longer and read the field differently. So I think it's taken him a couple weeks to get established as trying to be more of a true NFL pocket passer than what he was last year. He's still going to get out and scramble, right? I think you just have to cut the cord and let Justin Fields loose, right? If he wants to run, let him run. If he wants to throw it, let him throw it. But I think when you're trying to contain him to the pocket a little bit more, again, it's taken him a little bit of time to get settled back into something that he hasn't really done much of since his time at Ohio State, because he was running so much in Chicago. So they caught him at a good time. Baker Mayfield, credit to him. He's actually played pretty well, right? It hasn't been perfect. The stat line looks good. But when you see some of the stuff, I mean, he couple overthrows that Mike Evans is a massive dude. You know, he can climb the ladder, catch some balls that maybe some other receivers can't catch. Chris Godwin's a good receiver. So I think right now it looks good for Baker. There will be down points throughout the season. We know that the ups and downs are going to happen. I do think there's good things still on that defense. I've talked about that even with expecting them to have a bad record this year. But they're off to a good start. It's not going to continue against Philadelphia. Philadelphia is too good. They're going to overmatch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have Philly winning that one 27-13. Not going to be much of a game. Probably going to tune in for a little bit, but I'm probably going to be watching more of the other one than this one.
Philadelphia is a very real threat to go back to the Super Bowl this year. Their 2-0 start does not surprise me. It's done me well so far, as we picked differently last week. Glad I took Philly in that one. I don't see them losing. I see Tampa Bay putting up a good fight. Obviously, definitely see Philadelphia winning. Wanted to point this out, though. When you look at last week, that big, long pass from Mayfield to Evans that they showed quite a few times, he actually puts it on his back shoulder behind him. So if you go back and watch that, it was actually a terrible pass. He had enough arm to get it there, but Evans had to turn completely around and use, as Cole just said, his big body to snag that. If that was thrown to a receiver who was like 5'11" or even like 6'1", that might not be the case. So,
and if we're talking about the same pass, that should have been offensive pass interference, because it's pushed off as well.
That too. So, hey, listen. I mean, I will say this though: you play the cards you're dealt. They're 2-0. Say what you want about Tampa Bay. I think it's a combined 0-4. The two teams they've beaten. Mm-hmm. They're gonna have to play a very good, very real team this week. I think this is an easy pick. Gonna go with Philadelphia.
So we move to the second Monday Night Football game, and we can fly through these Monday Night Football games because there's two of them. And that is the Rams traveling to Paycor Stadium down in Cincinnati to play against the Bengals. Joe Burrow has re-aggravated his calf injury. You texted me about that today, and I wasn't really paying much attention to that. I'm like, seriously, again, right? Another injury, but it's just the same calf injury he's been dealing with. Joe Burrow in that offense, man, they've been bad the first couple weeks. They have struggled. He hasn't really been able to find Jamar Chase. He actually started to find Higgins this past game, but the connection with Chase, aside from on some bubble screens, which we know our guy Dom Clary hates screens like that when the offensive linemen don't get any work, and it's just the wide receivers and tight ends getting out there to block. So, but they really don't have that offense running at full power. The defense, there's good things on that defense, but they're not a defense that's not going to give up points. The maybe fortunate thing for Cincinnati is, regardless of whether Joe Burrow's at full health or not, I would assume he's going to play this upcoming weekend. But against the Rams are a team that I think are going to have some struggles this year. Matt Stafford's looked better the first couple weeks than what I expected. I thought his arm was kind of looking a little shot as of last year. Fortunate for him that he actually appears to be okay. They're fortunate that Puka Nacua is stepping up very well in the absence of Cooper Kupp. He's a guy that I liked his possession receiving abilities. I was pretty high on him with my draft prospects this past year. Maybe he doesn't have the best speed, the separation ability, but when it comes to his route running ability, there's similarities to what Cooper Kupp does. So similar type of receiver. He's a good guy filling in. I don't necessarily trust their running game as Kyron Williams is now their guy without Cam Akers, and I didn't trust them with Cam Akers. So, and their defense is not the same as what it was a few years ago when this Bengals-Rams matchup happened in the Super Bowl and the Rams won. This time the Bengals get the revenge. They get their first win on the season at home. I have them taking this one 23-12, Vince.
Well, this is a very tough game to pick. I was very undecided. I'm actually going to disagree with you on the running back for the Rams. I think he's actually off to a pretty good start. Williams is. I think it's an upgrade from what they were getting, the very, very inconsistent play last year from Akers. But I will say this. I don't want to bury Matthew Stafford by any stretch. This is a guy who led his team to the Super Bowl just 2 years ago, right? So it's not like he's that ancient and over the hill that he can't get it done. My problem here with the Bengals, and this is sometimes where my picks come back to bite me, and I bury myself in a hole. And as I say that, I'm going to do it again, and I hope it doesn't happen to me yet again. I'm going with the Bengals for the sole reason of this. I think they're too good to be 0-3. Now, Cole said a little bit earlier, let the cat out of the bag, but I think people already know. We taped the show on Tuesday night. Now, let's say we're sitting here on Sunday night, and for sure Joe Burrow's not playing. I'll be honest, I don't see myself picking the Bengals.
Right.
But I think he has 8 days to get better, whatever it was. And I really think Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL despite these first 2 weeks. I just feel like if he's on that field next Monday night, they're going to will their way to victory. They're somehow going to find a way to win. Again, with us making this pick on Tuesday, it could be completely different 6 days from now. Going to go with the Bengals, really for the sole reason, I'll say it again, I just think as a team, as a franchise, whatever, they are too good to start a season 0-3. Though 0-2 doesn't shake me. They've done that 2 out of the last 3 seasons. They seem to start slow every single year under Burrow and this head coach. Don't feel comfortable with this pick, but like I said, I already marked it in my spreadsheet there. I have to do it. Going with Cincinnati.
Well, we're on the same page there as much as it seems to pain you taking the Cincinnati Bengals in that one.
Also, folks, hold on here. One more, behind the scenes of the show. When you see me leaning forward and typing, that is me putting in Cole's pick. So I don't want you to think I'm doing some, bizarre stretch routine after every time he makes a pick. I just like to type it in so I don't forget. But I have the spreadsheet up in front of me. I'm sure nobody really cares what I'm talking about. But anyways, there you go.
You mean you don't have a different computer up and you're watching stretching videos and stretching after you finish making your pick?
Stretching?
Hey, nope. This isn't a stretch.
Oh, I thought you were talking about yoga.
Yeah, you get up, unroll your yoga mat as I'm making my picks. You're back there. Downward dog.
No, but what's funny about that is our YouTube account sends you videos you might like. Mm-hmm. And I looked up some yoga things probably about almost a year ago now since I started working out. And that's one of the few things they send me now. It'll be like, you might be interested in whatever. So that's actually funny. So I won't say constantly, but a couple times a week I get the you may likes, and it's literally just people stretching.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's not a bad thing, though.
No, not at all. But before the show goes completely off the rails, so we're both going with Cincinnati.
Well, we're going to turn to our upset pick here this week, see if Vince has any crazy upsets. Wouldn't be surprised if we're on the same page with one upset. I will wait and see on that as I'm going to toss this one to Vince first. What's your upset pick this week, Vince?
Saints, because I'm not yet sold on the Green Bay Packers. I think the Packers were a little bit lucky in week 1. As we said, I think we have not yet seen the best by any stretch of the Bears and Justin Fields. Last week, the Packers had a lead. They blew it. Good thing for both me and Cole, who took the Falcons in that one. But I'm not overly sold on Green Bay. They're still a bit being banged up. I'm not really sold on the Saints either, but their division is crap. So I really think Well, I shouldn't say that 'cause the Falcons are 2-0 as well, but I think the Saints are the better team. Absolutely love Derek Carr. He's off to a slow start this year, though. His numbers are not very good. Hope he kind of, turns it around a little bit. But I like the Saints in this one. We had to make an upset pick. This one to me seemed like the safest bet. There were a couple lines this week that I don't normally agree with. There was a few, but I guess that's why I'm not a Vegas odds maker, to say the least. But I think too, though, if the Saints win this game, they're off to a great start, 3-0. I don't know if a lot of people saw that coming.
By no stretch of the imagination is this a surprise. The Saints. The Saints. I'm going with the Saints against the Packers as well. We're on the same page there. Again, I think you and I both picked the Falcons over the Packers, and that was a close game. And I have to say Jordan Love played pretty well, but Desmond Ridder, certainly not perfect with some of the passes, but he's a gamer, right? The guy has not lost at home in his NFL career as a starter and his college career as a starter. I believe that goes back to even some of his high school career as a starter. So the guy just doesn't seem to lose at home, and he got the win over the Packers. And now the Packers trying to bounce back. They have a test against the Saints, a Saints team that they haven't necessarily wowed anybody by any stretch of the imagination, but they are good enough. Defensively, at quarterback, I trust Derek Carr over Jordan Love with the experience. Michael Thomas being back is a sure-handed target. You have Chris Olave. You have a couple other pieces there. And you still are without Alvin Kamara, but Jamal Williams is doing a good job filling in. I think it's a well-rounded, well-balanced team. They're not the most explosive team we've seen right now. They're not wowing anybody, but they're doing enough to win. And I think they do that again in this one. In a low-scoring game, I have this one 21-17, but enough for the Saints to get the job done. So we're on the same page. I had another upset that I thought about putting up. I had the Jets beating the Patriots. Kind of surprised that the Patriots are favorites in that one. I think obviously if Aaron Rodgers was the starter, it'd be a completely different line. But I do think that the defense of the Jets, they win out in that one. They do enough to win that game. But that is something that I thought I was tempted between the Saints and the Jets, want to put that one up. But you and I are on the same page with our official one we'll have here in the show for the Saints.
Yeah, I went with the Patriots in that one, by the way. Again, same reason I went with the Bengals. I just think Bill Belichick is too good of a coach to start a season 0-3. So we'll see how this all pans out. A week from now, we'll see if I'm regretting it yet again. But really, the Patriots too, they haven't looked bad in either one of their losses. Yeah. That game Sunday night was pretty damn good, by the way. I'm not sure, a lot of you, if you watched it or not, but it was really good. Like, I enjoyed it. Listened to most of the first half while I was working out. Came home, watched the second half. It's a pretty good game.
Yeah.
Patriots are not bad. Patriots are 0-2, but they're not terrible at 0-2. Like, I want to count them out just yet.
Yeah, no, they have some good things in the sense of their last two games that they lost have been close. Both of them against the Eagles, against the Dolphins. They gave them the test. They just couldn't get it done in the end. Before we move to the Browns, there's one more thing. You were complaining about lines just a little bit ago. I have a feeling that the Vikings and Chargers game is a line that you're complaining about where they were even. And I'm just curious to see, because that's one where I could see us maybe going different ways on this game. Who'd you take on this?
I'll tell you right now who I took, but I am going to let you guess real quick who I took. And I took the Bengals because they're too good to go 0-3. I took Bill Belichick because he's too good to go 0-3. You have to know who.
I know you took the Chargers because they're too good to go 0-3.
Jesus, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, folks. If the Chargers lose this game, Brandon Staley, I'm sorry, you're a local guy, whatever, you're fired. I've had enough. You want to talk about bozo head coaches? People complain about Stefanski. This guy's no better. This is a sure thing. And I understand that Eckler is hurt. I get all that. But you have, again, I'd say easily top 5 quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts, for now, Jalen Hurts has crept a little bit above him. But I would still put Herbert in my top 5, definitely top 6 in the NFL. Minnesota's good too with Kirk Cousins. They could light it up. They have no defense. And I just feel like if the Chargers start 0-3, you need to blow it up with a new coach immediately before the season's out of control. But yeah, I am actually kind of curious to see who you picked as well on that one.
Yeah, the Chargers have so much talent, right? And Herbert was so good. Even when he had that pressure, right? On fourth down, he almost got sacked, spun out of it, fading back, threw that one up to Keenan Allen for a touchdown. The things he did, were really good. And they have a good defense, right? And they seem to be healthy right now, aside from Austin Eckler. That's a team that should be winning ball games. I understand the loss to the Dolphins. That was a shootout. It was close. You have to win some of those shootouts at some point because the Chargers are in a bunch of them. But that one I get. Against the Titans, a team that I don't think are very good this year, how do you lose that one? And that's kind of just shocking to me that they dropped that one.
Mm-hmm.
On the road here, though, I expect a shootout, right? And until the Chargers prove otherwise that they can win a shootout with Staley because he makes bad decisions, I took the Vikings just for the sole fact of the Vikings last year won a ton of close games. The Chargers seem to lose a ton of close games. So in a shootout where I have this one 35-33 Vikings, I just feel like luck of the draw is going to go their way. So we're on different pages for that one. But I knew we had to talk about it because that was an interesting line. That was one where I felt like we could be on different pages.
And you've now taken Minnesota, a team that you really don't care for,
No.
3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. And that train's going to end, right, as they start getting into some other games. But right now, as much as I'd want to take the Chargers in this one, I don't know if I can after what I've seen, especially last week's loss. If they didn't lose to the Titans, I'm taking the Chargers here. But my mindset shifted because they can't win these close games. And until they prove to me otherwise, I don't know if I can go with them in a game that I expect to be close. And I do expect it to be close against Kirk Cousins in that offense.
I'll tell you what, all 3 games that we picked different, because I'm comfortable in saying that we probably both picked the Browns coming up here in a second. So far, all 3 games that we picked different are razor close.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I wouldn't bet on any 3 of those games like that. The Jets, New England, Chargers, Vikings, Raiders, Steelers, all 3 of those I would not touch. So, but yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it is. So we turn to the Browns, and I have to say, I was thrilled going into the game the other night just because the Browns, from what we saw in week 1 and what we can expect and what we see on paper too, the Browns are a much more talented team than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had a good feeling about that. Now, like I said, I always hate playing against the Steelers. Hate when they go into Pittsburgh. But that being said, I was excited about the new white uniforms with the white helmets. Looked really clean. It looked really good. Disappointed with how the game started, where Harrison Bryant should have easily caught that pass. How do you let that one slip out of your hands into the arms of Highsmith, who runs it in for a pick 6? It's a bad start to the game, but they rebounded. And I felt like then things were trending back the Browns' way, and there should have been no reason then they lost that game. Then the injury happens. And what I have to say is everybody's freaking out about the loss, but I think no matter what the result would have been, I said this earlier, and I'll stick by this. No matter what the result was, I was upset. I was just mad and disappointed, kind of devastated because of that injury, right? Because even though you have a great team, it alters the course of your season. It alters kind of the game plan, right? Where Watson had a guy who's an incredible running back, arguably the top guy in the NFL at his disposal, which really takes a lot of pressure off of the quarterback. So it changes the entire offensive scheme just a little bit, as good as Jerome Ford is and as much as I have belief in him. It's just hard to see that when you have such a talented team and then so early in the season that now you have a little bit of an uphill battle to climb when you were off to one of the best starts you've ever had. And it could have been the first 2-0 season start since 1993. So it was one of those things where no matter what happened, I would have been devastated. But at the same time, I'm not freaking out as much as others today. Stefanski, I don't think he called a bad game. I thought there were occasional calls, right, that could have been better. But in general, I don't think Stefanski did a bad job. If you look at some of that film, I think there were receivers that were open at times. I'm not necessarily distraught about Deshaun Watson. I think Watson was a guy who, no, he wasn't able to do enough. At times he was trying to do a little bit too much, which again, that's a combination that's weird, right? He was trying to do a little bit too much, escaping out of the pocket, trying to find if he could run, take on defenders, and get to the first down marker, get yardage by himself. But in doing so, again, it didn't pan out. So he missed some throws, but a lot of that had to do with the pressure. We already talked about the pressure. But I think when they have time to settle in and talk things over, I think they'll be okay in the long run. I like what I saw from Jerome Ford. I've liked what I've seen from him in the past. Again, he's been a guy that I've been high on and said that Browns fans would hate to hear this, but I thought Jerome Ford was going to be the starter in 2 years. Now he's going to have to start now. But I just felt like once Nick Chubb hit that 30-year-old range, and he had well over 1,500 carries probably at that point in his career, I felt that like the shelf life of the running back is starting to go. So they were probably going to start making the move to Jerome Ford. It's just happening a little bit here now. Hopefully Nick Chubb can come back and be healthy and play next year. But I like things that I've seen. I'm glad that it seemed like aside from the Chubb injury, some of the little nicks seem to not be major on the defense that we saw. So I think they're going to be okay. The hardest thing is when a severe injury like that happens to your teammate. Everybody's mindset shifts. Not only are we all devastated as fans at Holmes, they are too. Those players have to try to put that out of the back of their mind, and they got to focus and play. But at the same time, they're not necessarily fully okay and fully with it, because you're also thinking about, can this happen to me while I'm out here, right? You need a little bit of time of being on the field to let that phase out, and you're not thinking about yourself having a major injury, right? Like that, right? You're also thinking about your teammate. So it's hard to completely flip the switch and get that out of your mind. The first thing that came to my mind when it comes to a situation similar to that, Ohio State Buckeyes national championship against Florida. Ted Ginn Jr. takes it to the house. They celebrate. Roy Hall comes in, and as they all dive and are dogpiling, looked like Roy Hall kind of slipped and got on his ankle and accidentally rolled it. And again, when he turned his ankle, then Ted Ginn Jr.'s injured, done, and the Buckeyes were devastated. The whole team, it was like a light switch went off, right? And even if Florida was the better team that year, I think that game could have been close. But Ohio State got blown out because Florida, their minds were still in it. They were raring to go. They were playing a national championship, and Ohio State was just deflated after it. So I kind of felt that way. I think the Browns weren't fully clicking. They still had a chance to win the game, but it felt like the Steelers were focused on the football game, and the Browns just weren't 100% focused on that game because they were thinking about their teammate and other things. So after a week, they'll bounce back. I do feel good about that, Vince.
Do or die time for Deshaun Watson. These next 2 to 3 weeks, he needs to start playing like the Deshaun Watson of old. I think once he does, I hope that he will, people will settle down a little bit. I don't think the Ravens' defense is world beaters. Obviously, I don't think Tennessee's defense is nearly what it was. That is his next 2 matchups to then prepare him for the 49ers, which is probably going to be easily the biggest test of his Cleveland Browns career. He looked awful last night. It was bad. The problem here, again, is the confidence level clearly isn't there. We already touched on a lot of it earlier in this episode when it comes to Jed Wills and the lack of protection he has passing the ball as well. A lot of people want to say, oh my gosh, well, what if this guy was back there? What if that guy was back there? It doesn't matter. If you don't have time to throw the ball, or even the mental peace of mind that you'll be able to set your feet and make a good throw, it's going to make you rush everything else. It's going to make you make some bad decisions. Now, that being said, he's a professional quarterback making $232 million. He needs to know how to throw under pressure. It's one of these things that either it's going to happen or it's not. Nobody who knows Cole and myself that has watched this show the last 3+ seasons, you guys, it's not a mystery to you. We are both big Deshaun Watson fans. I've told the story on the show. I've told the story to other people off the show. The first conversation, I'm telling you, the first conversation me and this young man ever had was about how we wanted the Browns to have Deshaun Watson. This is all the way back in the summer of 2019. So this is nothing new, all right? We want this guy to succeed. I dread it all day long. I love doing the show, guys. This is one of my favorite parts of the week. I assure you. I look forward to it like you wouldn't even imagine. I dreaded having to do this portion of the show tonight because I have to talk bad about a player that I really liked, a player that I really wanted to be here in Cleveland. He's been horrendous so far. Last week, we gave him a break, said, okay, the weather was a little bit off, this, that, and the other. But you have a guy like Cooper, Amari Cooper, who was playing last night, playing injured, right? You know, with the groin and everything else, the scar tissue, that was whatever. He played his butt off. Donovan Peoples-Jones, where the hell are you? Football season started a few weeks ago, bud. Anytime you could get open would be spectacular. You see David Bell in that game, knows how to get open, knows how to catch the ball, knows how to block. Yep. And it's funny because there's a lot. I don't really like to look at my phone except maybe during a timeout or whatever else. But I was just about to text Cole last night, looking at him make that block. Cole beat me to it. That is the stuff that we notice. Okay, I'm not saying we're like, you know, the world's greatest analysts, but somebody can watch the Browns game and see somebody like David Bell doing the little things. If I see a guy like David Bell doing the little things, I move him up in the rotation. Donovan Peoples-Jones, you're running out of strikes, pal. I was huge on you coming out of Michigan. Getting you in the 6th round, I felt was a huge, huge steal. Thought you would be returning kicks, returning punts. You would be a difference maker. You were terrible last night from the non-fair catch on the punt that backed us all the way up to the 6-yard line to just you didn't exist. Mm-hmm. I wanted them to trade you in the preseason. You're still here. Make me pay for those words. All right. Just so many frustrating things. You ruined a phenomenal not Peoples-Jones, but a team in general. You guys ruined a phenomenal defensive effort last night. You have a once-in-a-lifetime player in Myles Garrett, and you guys are making him and his efforts look mediocre because it's not translating to winning. Why do people love T.J. Watts? Because they win. Why do people love J.J. Watts, his older brother, when he was on the Cardinals? Because they won. Okay? Look at a guy like Reggie White. The guy was a winner everywhere he went. There's no more excuses anymore for the Cleveland Browns. I'm sick of it. I have to believe other fans are sick of it. And this is your chance. You need to win, and you need to win big. Tennessee is crap. They're not a good football team. You need to go in there. You need to take an early lead. That way they don't have to rely on Derrick Henry all night long. Take him out of the game by going up by 2 or 3 touchdowns and just pile it on. If you can't do that, we're in for a very, very long season. Sticking with my pick. Sticking with the Browns here, but this is getting harder and harder by the week. You just hope there's some sort of switch that could possibly been flicked. Got to complain one more time about ESPN. They talk about the dumbest crap. I don't need to know about Deshaun Watson's mental peace coach or whatever in the world that was. It was like they were picking moments, and sure enough, every time they did something, something bad would happen. You talk about Jim Schwartz. I think he's been an incredible defensive coordinator these first 2 weeks. Love what I'm seeing. They talk about how he's encouraging the team to do dances and celebrate and get excited. They show these highlights. What do you know? The very next play, 71-yard touchdown pass against that same Browns defense. Can't tell me sometimes that you just can't make this up. You can't make this up. I just hope, as I've said 5 or 10 times already during the show, the better team should win. The Browns are too good to drop the 1 and 2, but I'll tell you what, they dropped the 1 and 2. They might be 1 and 4 by the bye week, and if that's the case, we got a major problem on our hands, Browns fans. Major problem.
Yeah, I'm with you. You have a great opportunity here. Next 2 games at home, I believe. So you got a little stretch here.
Not only that, but look at it this way, okay? Just look at it for a second. This is how much, and again, this is why I was getting so irritated today thinking about all this. Look at it like this, all right? There's no guarantee Joe Burrow is going to play, okay? So Cincinnati, after this week, possibly, the Bengals could be 0-3, all right? Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh stinks. If you could have just beat them, you'd be 2-0, probably going to be 3-0, okay? Because if you beat Pittsburgh, you're going to beat Tennessee, you would think. So we were looking at a situation here, folks, where the Browns could have been 3-0, the Ravens could have been 3-0, and the two closest teams behind them would have been 0-3 and 0-3. Then you set up a week 4 matchup with the Ravens of 3-0 versus 3-0 at home. You beat them. The next thing you know, you're 4-0, and you've beaten all 3 divisional opponents. But instead, now everybody's got to sit there and think to themselves, what do we have? Because you couldn't freaking block for a guy. You block for the guy, everything changes. And I got to say, Hopkins, I realized he missed one last night. He missed a kick last night. He's been damn good so far.
Yeah,
so I just want to shout out Hopkins. Boy, is it nice to have a good kicker. Feel myself going to heat it up again. Going to stop ranting and raving. Going with my pick. Going with the Browns. Excited for high school football this weekend. Have a doubleheader. I'll tell you about that in a second.
It's easy to get heated. There's a lot of people to blame. But as much as there are the frustrations that you had a great opportunity to win that one, and you'd argue that they really should have won that one. They had the chances. They let it slip out of their hands. These guys are all pros, right? They're all professionals. So they're going to just have to regroup, regather. Hopefully, like I said, a couple of days, they're able to get their mind right. I'm sure a lot of them, they've had communication with Nick Chubb. They will throughout the week. Like I said, once they've talked to their friend and their teammate, again, know that he's recovering, as I believe he had a surgery here coming up, if not today, tomorrow. So regardless of everything, like I said, they just need to buckle up. You have to focus on the next game at hand. Focus on Tennessee. You have the talent to win that one. Crowd that box. Stop the run of Henry. Try to get up a couple scores. And if you get up, then they're going to have to throw the ball with Ryan Tannehill. And you let your front seven terrorize Ryan Tannehill. And I don't think there's much they can do about that. We'll see what Ford can do. I think Watson, he's got the talent. It's still in there, right? But in a loud environment, in that situation, with the pressure, again, you're right. It's not the physical skills. It's not the physical tools. He's got the size. Actually, some of the sacks that he avoided, I was impressed by. I'm like, okay, he got out of that. That's impressive. Most quarterbacks don't. It was then where it's like, okay, now throw it out of bounds. Throw it out of bounds. Doing too much, right? So I think just once the mental side of things, if he can touch up on some of the mental stuff and just play smart, again, I think the tools and everything's still there. So he will bounce back. He's not going to be as bad as this past week. I think this next week, it might not be 400 plus passing yards and 4 touchdowns. But as long as he puts up a decent stat line and they can move the ball, get first downs and score some points, I think as long as they score over 20 points, I think they can beat this Titans team. So that's why I have the Browns winning this game, Vince.
In sports, 3 of the toughest things to do is be a pitcher, a quarterback, and a golfer. And I say this because nobody really watches bowling. But you look at it, and a golfer's all there at the tee by himself. The only person he's truly playing against is himself. The pitcher, same type of thing in baseball, right? A lot of it's mental. Quarterback, more than anything, the same type of thing. While you have to be thinking, you have to be smart, you have to have unbelievable vision. You have to see everything in front of you. At the end of the day, what Cole just said was 100% right, because when Watson was playing free, physical free last night, and really since the Browns have gotten him, he's played well in those brief snippets.
It's flashy.
When he has to scramble out. Yeah, when he has to roll out. When it's reaction, when it's physical reaction, you know what to do. That's what happens, okay? It's when he thinks too much that he's overthrowing the ball, underthrowing the ball, fumbling the ball, everything else. Dumb it down a little bit. Go off your physical, whatever you have inside you. That's when you're going to do your best work. I'll say it as a play-by-play guy and a color analyst and everything else, even with Cole, who's a pro at this, a lot of times you do your best work when you're calling what you're seeing and you're into it, right? That's why the intensity of anything you're doing, if you're really zoned in, you're not thinking before you speak. It comes right out because it's flowing. It's natural. It's when these guys have to think too much that they'll put their foot in the mouth or something like that. I've been there. I've lived it. I know it. the sports is the same thing. When you go off a reaction, you're so unbelievably confident in what you're doing, you do big things. Patrick Mahomes makes it look so flawless. So flawless. John Elway, my all-time favorite. Elway made it look flawless. That's the guy that Watson was in Houston. And this is how I'm going to finish the point. That's the guy Watson was in Houston. That's the guy he needs to be in Cleveland. Just play your game.
Yeah, I think you have to get him into a rhythm. That's the main thing. I think against Tennessee, something that actually Watson does well with is RPOs. When he has to make a really quick decision, do I pull this and throw it? Do I hand this off? If you can run some like quick slants, some short routes against Tennessee, some RPOs where he's deciding whether he wants to pull it and throw it to a receiver or he wants to hand it off to Ford. If you can do that a couple times, I think early in the game against Tennessee where he's needing to make quick decisions, then I think the times where he has a little bit more time to think, he's not going to maybe overthink things as much because the mindset was up and rolling a little bit faster, right? I think that's something that can help him out because he actually has typically been good when he's made quick decisions in the past. I think you just have to get him there and scheme around that. Again, just get him some reps, get him comfortable early, and then again, hopefully that rhythm stays throughout the game. So fingers crossed, the talent's there. We still just got a long way, maybe uphill, but there could be some major strides taken in the right direction for him this next week. So that's going to do it for us really here in week 3. Again, we talked a long time in this episode because there was a lot to discuss. There's a lot that's shifting with this Browns team. There was a lot to discuss about the game earlier this week on Monday night, but I'm excited for high school football. I'm excited for this weekend. Maybe I'm not as excited for the Browns game as I would have been before, but I think the nice thing is once they actually get back out there on the field, I'm cheering for them again. It's all going to calm down. It's just kind of the stress of everything here that happened in week 2 that I think everybody's dealing with. So I think it'll all settle down for everybody here in the next couple of days. Any final thoughts, Vince?
Yeah, this is how I knew I was going to be heated up tonight, so I had plenty of liquids. Can of flavored water, traditional coffee, little baby water bottle, and of course the traditional NXT water bottle. So with you though, Cole, had a lot. I knew I was going to be talking a lot. Hey, you mentioned it though, high school football this weekend, guys. All joking aside, check us out. I will be double duty. I love doing a double dip, maybe even a triple dip, but for sure a double dip Thursday night, Valley Forge. I will be at their game against Lakewood. Former player of the week this year, Jenny's Popcorn player of the week. Week 2 was Avery Holt, quarterback for Lakewood. He leads the Rangers into Cole's favorite stadium, Byersfield, as they will be taking on Valley Forge Thursday night. So as you're watching this, just picture me at Byersfield that night, bud. And then Friday night, of course, I will be up the street here, not far from my house at all, as Westlake, 4-1 Westlake hosts Fairview. But as they tell you every week on the broadcast, each week, 20 to 30 games. We have all the big games in Ohio. We have some Texas games, Iowa games, Missouri games. We have everything the high school football fan wants. And Cole, I will let you wrap it up by telling everybody where you guys will be this weekend.
Yeah, we're going to be at George Finney Stadium on the campus of Baldwin Wallace University.
You ever been there?
I think a few times. Might have played a little bit of college soccer in that stadium, and of course, Vince and I, we met calling Cleveland SC soccer years ago, and in that very same stadium. So, no, definitely familiar with there. Still call games for BW from time to time. So yeah, no, going to be there on Friday. Going to be there actually a couple times this week. So, but Friday night football, that is one where Berea Mid-Park, they host Midview, and both those teams actually, I think, based off of how the season started for them and what I've seen from those teams, at least kind of reading up on them a little bit, we could actually be in for a pretty good one between those two. I think Midview's taken some steps in the right direction this year. Berea Mid-Park has some talent still on that team. Could be a fun one on that night. We'll wait and see. Make sure you watch that one on the YouTube channel. So, but aside from that, we'll step aside here for this episode for another week of the Climate Tech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. I'm Cole McDaniel. and Vince McKee. We're going to sign off. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Climatech is a full-service company. We install as well as service both residential and commercial products.
We service furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, boilers, mini split systems, tankless hot water.
We've got a good group of technicians that have been developed into a company culture that delivers a good degree of confidence to the customer and gives us a good product output. They want to take care of the customer and make sure that the customer is satisfied with their service. And when you've got non-stressed employees at your home, you're going to get a greater result from that service call or from that installation.
Our customer needs, comfort, and health are of utmost importance, and we strive to provide that to every customer within their budget. As we continue to grow, we remain focused on maintaining our high level of customer satisfaction.
When you hire Climatech, you're hiring a whole team of experts that have been in the business well over 80 years. If you're looking for a new install, if you're looking for just maintenance on your equipment, we are the company of your choice.